So today we're starting component 2, which is the last class or last lesson for this section. Component 2 will cover a lot of subjects relating to API calls, relating to promises, and also relating to asynchronous JavaScript. So in the introduction, it says now that we have some understanding of what component is, we can learn to utilize asynchronous JavaScript and promises to make HTTP requests and get data from the server. So in this lesson, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to understand and utilize asynchronous JavaScript and promises. You should be able to understand HTTP requests and get data from a server using Axios. You should be able to iterate over a list of data and receive from a server, creating a set of components and adding them to the DOM. So those are the kind of things we'll cover today. So the first thing we will talk about is what is asynchronous JavaScript. So asynchronous JavaScript. So from general understanding of programming, when you have something happening in your program, let's say you have a function running and that function is taking a while, then there is something else underneath the function that needs to run. If you want that to run, some programming languages don't allow you. You have to finish that function. So that function, whatever the loop it's doing, let's say it's doing like 1,000 loops, and there's a code underneath that function that wants to run, but it has to wait the function. So in JavaScript, it has this method, this concept called asynchronous. Asynchronous means something that happens not synchronously. Basically, it happens at different times. So that's where JavaScript is powerful when it comes to languages. It has this way of utilizing something called the stack call, and here's the example of a stack call. It takes, let's say you have a function running, and that function is taking, let's say, maybe like a minute, and then instead of waiting that function, JavaScript jumps from that function, puts that function in the stack or sometimes in the queue, and then it executes whatever underneath that function. So an example, let's give an example. So let's copy this code, go to here. This is what we can do today, the lecture, and paste this code. So this code has something called set timeout. Set timeout is a method in the browser. Some people think it's in JavaScript, but it's actually in the DOM. And all it does, it calls a callback function, and that callback function executes after 1 second. So, and you can make this one like 3 seconds or whatever. So 1,000 means 1 second. So this executes after 3 seconds, but this message executes right away. So in JavaScript, this is kind of like this is an example of asynchronous. This is not true in asynchronous, but this is an example of it. So if we clear now and we run, you're going to see this, and then you're going to see hello. Although this was supposed to run first. So you see over, and then after that, you will see hello after 3 seconds. So that's asynchronous. That's a simple way of understanding is that JavaScript doesn't wait anything. So they actually say that in when they're talking about programming, they say JavaScript waits no man. So it basically does its job, but then it comes back to it. So it's like as an example, let's give an example. It's like you go into let's say you go to a barbershop, and the barbershop said, hey, there's a line, you have to wait, but if you want to come back, write down your name and then come back maybe after an hour. It's gonna be your time. So you write down your name. Instead of just waiting there, you went back and did shopping for the family, and you dropped off the shopping, and then you came back to the barbershop and you get your haircut. So that's kind of like JavaScript. So the barbershop is like a function. So let's say here, here's the barbershop. Okay. Barbershop, I think that's how it's spelled, barbershop. The barbershop waiting. So let's put it that way. So you're supposed to wait here, but you actually left and did this. So this is like shopping. You did shopping here for the family. Okay. So you did the shopping for the family, and let's say after that you dropped off. So these are, let's say, steps. So these are like your to-do list. Okay. So haircut, okay, is your first one, step one, and step two was you're supposed to do a shopping for the family, shopping for the family. But now, so the shopping for the family, you have to deliver the shopping. So this one is 3 is deliver. Okay, 3 is deliver the shopping. Okay, so now here we're gonna say delivered. Okay, and here the barbershop, the barbershop said sorry, we can't do the haircut right now. You have to come back. So it's the same thing I'm just talking about. It's basically, first you see the shopping for the family, and then you see the shopping delivered, and then you went back to the barbershop and you did your haircut, right? So that is asynchronous in a nutshell. So what we just used right now here, what we use right now is a callback. Callback is one way of doing asynchronous JavaScript, and that was kind of like the old way of doing it. The new way of doing asynchronous is promises. So promises they have two. Promises is the same thing. So for example, we just said the barbershop said, "Hey, you have to write down your name and come back later." That's a promise. The barbershop gave you a promise and said, if you come back later after an hour, you'll get your haircut. So basically, the concept of promises is just that. It's basically you're delaying a message, or you're delaying a functionality, or you're delaying something, and you're waiting it to happen later. So in promises, let's say when you send a message, when you send a request to a database, when you send a request to, let's say, a server, you're waiting that server to finish the work and to verify you who you are and to give you the information. So while that's happening, you could actually do other things too at the same time. So the barbershop this time is the server or the database. Okay. So let's read a little bit about promises. So here it says promises are design pattern for use when handling asynchronous code in JavaScript. We use them as an alternative for nesting multi-callbacks. Okay, you may have heard the problem callback hell. Promises are a way to avoid that problem. Okay, so we don't want to read the whole thing. You guys can read about it, but here is kind of like a straight from MDN, the JavaScript documentation. This is what they said about promises. Promises is a proxy for value not necessarily known when the promise is created. So that's basically like the barbershop, and he told you he's gonna cut your hair later, but he's promising he didn't actually cut your hair. So it's not that promise is not necessarily present at that time. It allows you to associate handler with an asynchronous actions, eventually success when the value or failure reasons. So this is basically saying it allows you to handle if, let's say, if the barbershop says, "Oh, I can cut your hair," after you came back, or he says, "Oh, sorry, we're closing," or something happened and I can't cut your hair. So that's like the server saying, "Sorry, I can't give you the information. The server is down or something," or giving you the information. So you get either you get success or failure in that sense. And in later on, when we get to the backend, when we get to Node.js, you guys gonna build a promise from the ground. Now in the front end, right now, we're not gonna build a promise. We're just gonna consume a promise that was already created in the backend. We're just gonna consume it. We're just gonna get it, and kind of like use that data to build our application. So this says this lets you as asynchronous methods. This lets asynchronous methods return values like synchronous methods. So this part is saying basically when you get information from the database. Let's say the barbershop, he gave you the haircut, but you did all those things, the task, the shopping, and the barbershop was waiting for you. So it looks like, in if that happens in like a second or less than a second, it looks like everything was in like in order. So you did you went to the barbershop, you did the shopping, you dropped off, you came back. If all that happened in less than a second, it kind of looks like it is happening in synchronous. It's happening synchronous at the same time, but in reality, there was a delay in between the two things. And just like we saw here, that set timeout, it waited the set timeout to happen. Okay. Instead of immediately, here it says, instead of immediately returning the final value, the asynchronous method returns a promise to apply the value at some point in the future. So instead of, basically, this is what it's saying, instead of getting the actual value, let's say the getting the haircut in the barbershop, you have a written thing that that was promised for you, and later on it will become a true in the future. So that's a promise in a nutshell. And we will not be creating a promise, we'll just use promise. So how do we use promise? uh, so let's actually change subject, because we're going to build something and we're going to use the promise. But let me actually, before we do that, let me give you a hint of what's coming right now. We're going to use something called dot then. So the dot then, it stands for, okay, so the promise happened. So you went to the barbershop called you and said, hey, come and do your haircut, and you went there and you got the haircut. Okay, you get the haircut and you stand outside. That is the dot then. So after the promise, that then what happened? Did you get the haircut or not? If you get the haircut, you put the message here, I get the haircut, in the dot then. If you didn't get the haircut and something happened, the barbershop was closed, something happened, you put it in the dot catch. That catch is like error. So it's like in the database says, oh, I can't give you the message, sorry, something happened. Then you put it in the dot then. So, and the promise is an object, it's an actual object. So it either gives you the right information or it doesn't. And I'll show you guys the implementation of exactly how we're going to do that. All this is just explaining the dot then and the dot catch. Okay, so we're going to use it in real world applications so you guys can see exactly how to use it. Okay, all right. And all that's happening, the barbershop, you go into the barbershop saying, sorry, you have to come back later. And you go at the barbershop, you waiting for the barbershop, but doing other things at the same time. That is called, that's called in the promise and the events and everything that's happening, we put it in the call stack. The call stack is basically a something that you guys might be confused about right now. We're not going to go deep into it, but the main thing is the promise and the actions you're doing, everything you're doing goes into the call stack. So the call stack basically says, okay, you're supposed to do the barbershop, but now I'm gonna put you in. I'm gonna take that and put it underneath, and I'm gonna put the shopping at the top, and then the delivery. And then when you do the delivery, I'll just take it out from the stack. So it's like the stack. Think of it as like a washing dishes. When you're washing dishes, you stack them. So if you wanna wash one, you take the last one out. The last one you put on, you take that one out. So let's actually run this. Let me change it a little bit so that it makes sense. So this one was haircut. Okay, you're doing the haircut. So we're using set time out here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So we're gonna run these functions. You're using the set timeout to delay the haircut. Okay, and then here we're saying we're just doing the same thing. We're saying here doing shopping. Okay, and here we're gonna say we're gonna remove this set timeout, and here we're gonna say delivered shopping. Okay, or groceries. Okay, so now if you run, you will see a lot of things happening, but I'll explain it. So let's run. As you can see, things are coming to the call stack and getting out of the call stack. So basically what happened now is, forget about this part, the web API. This is just the browser. So if you hear web API, it means things related to the browser. So what happened here, if we run it again, if we like, let me run again. So now, as you can see, I paused it. So now you're at the barbershop. So now JavaScript is saying, okay, so you're asking the barbershop to do your haircut. I'm just gonna wait for like 2 seconds for that, or whatever time, and you're just talking to the barbershop now. So after you finish talking to the barbershop, oh, it goes way too fast. Okay, let me delay a little bit. Let's say 5 seconds. So now you did talk to the barbershop, and JavaScript, what it did was it took the set timeout of the haircut, and it was supposed to actually put it in the callback queue right here. I don't know why it didn't do that, but it basically it takes the message of callback, and it puts in here. Any callback function, it puts in the callback queue. And so this is kind of like the barbershop, and you left the barbershop and you're doing the shopping, and then you move on, and now you did the delivery, you resume, and then after like 5 seconds, it okay, let's run again. It goes way too fast. Okay, it was actually supposed to come back to it, but it puts in here, and right here it's called the event loop. So basically, the callback function, the delay, goes into here while you're doing the shopping, while you're doing the delivery. You finished it, you came back, and then now it takes out of the queue, puts in the call stack, and then removes it from call stack. So when it removes from call stack, it means that task is done, that function ran, and everything is good. Okay. This is a glimpse into call stack. You guys don't have to understand all about it. You just have to understand what is a call stack. In the interview, especially when you're looking for a job, they'll ask you, tell us what is the call stack in JavaScript. So you just have to say it's a place in JavaScript where keeps track of tasks in that you're doing in your code. And if the code is, let's say, has asynchronous stuff in it, then it basically puts that asynchronous in the callback queue, and then it calls again later when everything is finished, and then it runs that the last thing to run. So that's a call stack. Okay. So that was a lot to explain. I mean, I just touched the surface of what asynchronous Java is, a JavaScript is. So this is going to be something that's going to come back later on, and we will touch more. But let's actually get started and build something. So we have a application that we're building. Before I move on, any question about so far the asynchronous and what I talked about? Any questions? Okay. So, okay, so let's get started, and you will see example of promises and asynchronous when we're building the application. So this application basically is we're gonna use an API, and I should explain API before I move on. So I'm just gonna API. We're gonna use API to get images of cats shown here, and we're gonna build the functionality. So let's just get rid of this. We're gonna build the whole functionality for the components that we're gonna use. So we're gonna build the component, and then after that, we have the CSS setup, we have the HTML setup, and we're gonna append it to here. So the only new thing is you guys know how to do the appending, you know how to do how to create a component function. The only thing new here is the API. So let's explain what API is. Before I explain what API is, do you guys know what API is? Have you heard about it? What do you think it is? What do you think is API?
So they sometimes I heard people using Google API, so I think it's a third party library or
Okay.
um, to use to make easier so the provide a service.
Okay, that's good. Yep, third
I think
party.
it's
Yep, go ahead.
I think it's an application interface where you can go to like other websites to get their stuff. Like maybe you're going to like Facebook and get their Facebook login and stuff like that.
Yes. So API is a way to connect to other websites without basically being a hacker, without doing anything that is nefarious. They basically give you the access to their information. That's what
Someone is too loud.
someone have their microphone on. So API. Okay, let's go to here. What is API? Let's ask Google. Okay, so here in brief introduction, it says an API, an application programming interface. That's what API stands for. An application programming interface is a computing interface that defines interactions between multiple software or mixed hardware software intermediaries. It defines the kind of call or requests that can be made and how to make them, and the data formats that should be used, and the convention to follow. So that's a lot to understand. The main thing about API is, let's say if we go to images, you'll see that a lot of connections. So in here, this image kind of like gives a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more understanding of what it is. So let's say you are the browser. So you're using Chrome, you're using all these browsers and devices. You make a request. You say, okay, I need to get, let's say, cat images. And the cat images, you have to know how to get the cat images. So to do that, you have to go to the website of the cat images. So you say cat images API, okay? So this is the one we're going to be using today. And they're going to give you, so they have a website. The first step on API is to understand the documentation. Okay, how do I actually get images of cats in my application? So this is not just like Google. So if you go to Google and put images of cats, you get cats. But this one, you want to have a lot of cats in your website, and you want to programmatically retrieve those images every day. So you want to retrieve something new every day. So you go to documentation, and the documentation will tell you, okay, this is where you need to go to actually get cat images. So here you kind of like have to read a little bit and understand. Mostly you're looking for something called an endpoint. You're looking for an endpoint. So endpoint, okay. So here is, let's zoom in. Here is the link to actually get the image cats, okay? So this is where you get. So if you go here, let's actually just go here. It will give you like this gibberish JSON, okay? It will give you this JSON. And the reason why it's giving you this is a way to connect to their database. So this is literally their database. You have a JSON. This is an object, normal object, let's say. It's called JSON, but it looks like an object. So this is JSON. And why it looks nicer is because I have a Chrome extension right here that formats it for us. So let's just let's get rid of the formatting. How do you get rid of it? Let me see. It's called JSON. Yep, JSON view. So let me disable it. Okay, if I can disable it, let me just remove it. It's fine to remove it, and I can get it later. So if I remove it and kind of like do refresh, as you can see, it doesn't look nice now. So you have this something that looks like an object, but it's from the database. It's from their database, and they give you access. And instead of hacking, they allow you to actually access it. But they put a lot of a lot of things. So now what are we doing right now is we're actually requesting. So for the hacking to happen, you have to send something. Now we cannot send anything. We could only request and say, can you give me images of cats? And then it gives you images of cats. So now that's it. So that's why it gives you the endpoint. An endpoint is every time you see the website, right after it, all this is called endpoint. So this endpoint could be anything. It could be different things. It could be as you can see here, V1 is version 1. So their API is on version 1. Or it doesn't mean they updated. It means version 1. It means they have this endpoint is the first endpoint. Let's say they created. So anywhere you go, let's go to Twitter API. You could actually get information from Twitter and get like your profile and get all that stuff by just accessing their API. First thing to do, go to documentation. The next step is go to get started. I didn't even look at this API, so I'm just exploring it as you guys exploring it right now. So API developers actually they build this for you, so you could get access to Twitter information like your profile, other people's tweets. You could just grab tweets and basically put them anywhere on your application, and you don't need like special access. Sometimes, a lot of times, you need a special access, especially if you're like posting it. If you're posting tweets, you need to verify who you are. But if you're just grabbing things, a lot of times you don't need it. So as you can see here, you have different versions of APIs. Here, look up tweets. So there's a look up tweets here. How do we look up a tweet? So it gives us more information of here, quick start. Okay. So steps to build a get request. So the get request is basically how to retrieve information. Always APIs have they have 4 things. They have, let's see, API get post. Okay, so they have 3, there are 4 or sometimes more requests. So I think I have a sneeze coming up. They have get request, which is you use this word get, and you have post. You use that word post, and you have put. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I have a fan here, kind of blowing me. So you have different things to. So I don't know why they repeated this, but they say here get is used to request data from a specified source resource. If you hear resource, it means endpoint. So resources and endpoints are same. It's just the link. And here they're saying get is one of the most common used HTTP methods. There's also post. Post is to use to send the data to a server and create and update the resource. You basically send in a data to the database. And you know how that is. You cannot just update a database without permission. So a lot of times you need to have permission to use the post. Okay. I don't know why they keep repeating that. Let's go to the actual link. So this is W3 schools. So you have get, you have post, which is a way to post or send information to database. You have a put. Put is basically a way to update the database. Forget about the head, and delete is a way to delete information from database. So those are 4 things to keep in mind: get, post, put, and delete. Those are the 4 most used methods. So as you could imagine, to do any of the other ones except the get, you need permission. So you cannot just update things. You cannot just post things on a database, and you cannot just delete things. So those things you need you need to verify who you are. For example, if you want to delete in Twitter, you have to log in and you have to have a token, a code that verifies who you are, and that code is a long-term code, or sometimes it updates, but it has to keep changing for security purposes, and it's like a gibberish. It's usually called JSON token, or sometimes it's different types of token, or sometimes called hash. So in Twitter, so as you can see here, there's different ways of getting it. So here it says 3, identify and specify which tweets you would like to retrieve. So here they give us a link, and then I think this number is the tweet, I guess. And there's different ways to get. So a lot of times it's a little more complicated when it comes to bigger companies, but over here too, you can see they return a JSON. So every time you do a GET request, all the time, every time you get a JSON data, and that's why we've been using a JSON data to kind of do a mock practice, is because you always get something like this, and every website is different. Every website is different. So this website says data, and then that's where everything comes in underneath. And here you have the author, you have created, and you have the text, which is I'm assuming is a tweet. And then you have another author, and then the date, all that. So these are all different tweets. And here it says include users. So you including this user. So the reason why we have documentation, we have all this writing, is to understand actually how they actually built all this and how to retrieve it. So that's API. Any questions about API and what it is? Okay, so we're going to use API, this API, the cat API, to retrieve images of cats. So here they're talking about it's always good to actually read that documentation to understand what they're talking about. So here they give here you'll find an API reference and code examples. Search thousands of cat images, get info out about the different breeds, filter, search, all that stuff. So, and every time they do something, let's say you want to get the breeds, like different types of cats, it's a different endpoint. So it's different endpoint, as you can see here. So the endpoint you're going to use is /breeds, right? You're going to use that. If you want to get, let's say, if you want to get categories of cats, it's a different endpoint. So usually it's /categories, something like, yeah, right here. So this is different endpoint, as you can see. So all of them, they come under version 1. So sometimes you will get the breed, sometimes you'll get the type, sometimes you will get different things. So that's what API is, basically. That's what it looks like. So that's API. Any questions? Let me know. Let's go back to the place that we were at. And also I built this little application. I built the CSS. It's basically a container. I created a container, and then I created a font. And then after that, I created an entry. The entry is the where we enter. So this is the our function. That's what it comes under. I created the cat card. So this is a card that's going to show each cat. And then also I created a way to select it. So we might get to that. So if you select it, it's gonna like pop up somehow. And then the cat image, how it's gonna be shown, the width and all that stuff. So that's generally the CSS. Okay. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna build the function. And then the next step is we're gonna do the promise. So we're gonna call the API, and we're going to use something called Axios. And when we get there, I will explain what Axios is and what the API is. I explained the API, but I'll explain the Axios. Yeah, sure, definitely. Let me share that. Let me save it. Share the code. So I'll share the code right there. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do is the first step is we're gonna create. We'll build out a basic cat card. I'll call it cat card component. We should only be concerned. We should only show the cat images and cat names. Okay, cat names. So we're gonna show the cat images and the cat names. That's what we're gonna retrieve from the database. All right. So let's create that function. Let's call it cat card. Okay, and give it a cat image and cat name. Those are two things that we're gonna grab from the database, from the endpoint. So the first thing we're gonna create is we're gonna create the components. So let me actually kind of lay it out how it's gonna look like. So the component, like in general, this is how it's gonna look like. Let me create a comment here. Before the comment, I'm just gonna create it. So we're gonna create a div, and we're gonna give that div a class of cat images. And this is good to do sometimes, especially if you don't know what are you trying to create, the component you're trying to create. And this is the main div, so we're gonna close it. Okay. Inside it, we're gonna create a image component, an image element. So we're gonna say image. We're gonna give it a source equal to whatever the image that the URL that comes back, and the image we're just gonna give it a class of. We're gonna give it a class of. We're gonna give it a class of, let's say, actually this one we're gonna give a. We're gonna give cat card. Okay. So, and then this one we're gonna give cat cat image. Okay. So that's that. And the last thing is we're gonna give it a title. So the title is gonna be underneath the image. So we're just gonna create h3 and give title cat or name of cat here. Okay. So that's kind of like how it's gonna look like. It's very simple. Let me comment it out. All right. So let's create that. So let's say constant. And something else you guys can do is you could just instead of writing constant all the time, you could just do that and put it right here, and then say something like, we're gonna say new card and document dot create element, and then create a div and put here a comma so that you don't have to keep using constant all the time. So I actually just put this one on the first line, and the second one is going to be underneath it, right, like that. So this is called chaining variables, so you don't have to keep creating new ones, especially if you have a lot of them. So we're going to say new image, which is this right here. We're going to say document dot create element. I'm going to give it image, and the last thing we're going to create is we have to just expand this. And the last thing we're going to create is name. So we're going to call it document dot create element, and then we're going to give this h3. So this, we just follow in this example, and that's what we created. All right, so I'll put this here like that. So the next thing we're going to create is, we're going to do is we can add the content to each one of them. So here, let me put a comment here so you guys understand. Create elements. We're gonna add the content. We did this like 3 times this time. We did the DOM1, we did DOM2. I think we did DOM1, I'm not sure. But we did this DOM2 and we did the component to 1. So you guys understand how to create a component by now. So I'm just gonna write the information. So the name, we're gonna give it a cat name, and the cat name is coming from here, the function, a parameter, and also a new image. We're gonna give it a source. So sometimes you could do the set attribute, but sometimes you don't have to. So this is exactly the same as set attribute. You could just say dot source and then put the image here. So this is going to be the image from here. That's going to give us the image. All right. We're going to add the classes. Okay, we're gonna add new image. Okay, I think we're gonna do the appending in a little bit. We could do the appending on top if you guys want. We're gonna say a new card, or let's say new image class list dot add. So right here, new image, which is the image. We're gonna add a cat image to it. Okay. The next thing would be new card. No, dot class list dot add, and it's going to have a cat. It's going to have a cat card. Okay. So that is adding the classes. Let's do the appending. So we're gonna do the appending. So we're basically gonna append this to this, and then we're gonna append this to this. So 2 times. It's gonna be it's gonna be 2. So we're gonna say new card, which is the top one. Append child. I don't know why it's not giving me hints today. Append child. We're gonna say new image, and the next thing is a new card dot append child, and we're gonna add name here. Okay, so there's 2. All right, so we did the appending, we did all that stuff. So now we're just gonna do the returning. We're gonna return, and we're gonna return new card. Okay, so that's the function in nutshell. All right, let's go to let's actually check the function if it's working. So it needs an image URL and it needs a name. Okay, so let's just grab a random cat image. Okay, so just to show example, we're not doing the API call now. We're just using it to see example. So let's go back to here. Here we're gonna say let cat. Just gonna say, put it in the quotation. So that's the cat image, and we're just gonna say. So we're gonna call the function. Let's console log it. Console log the function. So it's a cat card. It needs 2 parameters. It needs 2 arguments. So the first one is the image. So we're gonna say cat. The next one is the name. We're gonna say cat here. Okay. All right. So image and cat. Okay. So that should give us a console log. If we console log it, that should give us the whole component. So as you can see here, it actually ran. Didn't even say run, but okay. So it ran and it gave us the whole component. If we didn't append to here, so we can do that now. So let's do the appended, and then after that, we're gonna do the API call. So let's do the appending. So we're appending it to where? Let's see, to here, right? That's where we're appending it to. So let's create that. So let's say something like let entry point. Let's say entry point equal to document dot query selector, and then we're just gonna choose that entry class. So now all we need to do is append to it, okay, using this too. So we're gonna say entry point dot append child, and we're just gonna put the function right there. So this should actually create the component here, 1 cat, hopefully, right there. Okay, so we have 1 cat. If we can put other cats, but we just have to do the call. We'll have to do the endpoint call. All right, so now we have that. When we call the database, it's going to give us all the cats. If we click it, it's not doing anything. That's fine. Okay, so the last thing left is doing the API call. Okay. I'm thinking of taking a break and then coming back to this. Let me see how much we need to cover. And or if I covered something, if I didn't cover something, I'm just looking at the notes. Response inspect. Okay, so this is all the things that we're gonna be covering. Right. Okay, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. Any questions so far? We did this many times, so I think most of you guys understand. Any questions before we take a break? All right. Okay. So we'll take a break. We'll come back 10 minutes, and then inshallah we'll do the API call. So 10-minute break. Okay, let's get back to it. All right, so I hope you guys can hear me. So we did the manual cat. We just added a manual cat here. So we don't want that. We want to call the API. So let's actually remove all this. And let's actually remove this too. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the API call and get all the cats from that website. So here's the API call. We will use the cat API website to retrieve cat images from that website. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use a get request to get the data first. Before we show the images, we have to get the data. So use get method to get images from the endpoint. Endpoint sometimes called resource. So that's what we're gonna do. So to actually do this, we have to use to do the get request. We have to use a service, a front end or a package. We have to use a package. We don't have to actually. We could use something else, but this one is the most convenient one. We have to use Axios. Axios is a service. It's a package that was created with JavaScript, and it allows us to send requests easily without doing all the background work. So, and we're gonna see Axios. We're gonna go to the website. So now let's actually go to the Axios website. So Axios is one way of doing requesting data. There is a fetch API or fetch, which is also a way to do the call. Axios API. There's a company called Axios, so keep that in mind. So Axios, this is Axios. So they have their own website, but they explain a lot here. Let's see. I'm looking for a explanation of what Axios is. So this is exactly the same thing. So Axios, let's go back here. What is Axios API? So Axios is a modern and promise-based JavaScript HTTP client library that can be used both in the browser and in the server Node.js. So Axios is a package that was already created, and what it does for us is it sends an HTTP request to a client, to a server, to a database, and it uses promise. So it uses promise in the background, and then all we have to do is just consume that promise. Basically, get that information, either handle it successfully, or if it's not successful, also handle that. So how do we use that? Okay. So we need to go and grab the Axios URL. So, and we have to put it in our header. So imagine this thing. We're gonna go to here. We're gonna go to HTTP, and we're gonna put it right here. So imagine this is your the HTML header. So where you put the CSS and JavaScript, this is your header right now. So imagine that. Okay. So we need to get a link. So it gives you in different ways. So different ways you could grab it. You could do npm install, which we will learn in the next section how to do npm installs. It's basically grabbing all the packages for Axios. You could do Power. This is usually if you want to use something called Power. That you could use Yarn, which is same as npm. We could also use CDN, which is just a link. So we could use the CDN. So let's just use the CDN. CDN is just basically a easier way to grab the information from the website. So Axios, so Zakaria said, is it a complete library like Node.js? So Axios is a really small library. It is a library like Node.js. I mean, Node.js is bigger. Node.js is not just a library; it's a whole platform. It's like the browser and like extension. So you know, like how Chrome has extensions and how VS Code has extensions. So Axios is like extension, and Node.js is like, let's say, the browser. So they're two different things, uh, but it is also, it helps you do HTTP requests. So we're just gonna use this for now, but later on when we go to the next section, which is React, when you guys finish the build week and all that, we're gonna use the npm install. But for now, just this link. So let's put this link, and this is already done for you in the homework. So you guys don't have to do get this link. The homework, I already added that for you. So we have that now. The next step is to do the API call. So we're just gonna say here, we're just gonna say we're just gonna grab Axios. So we're gonna say Axios dot get. So Axios.get is a way to get information from a endpoint. As you can see here, it shows in the documentation. This is how you get something from an endpoint. So make a request. If you want to make a request to to an endpoint like the cat API, you just say Axios.get, and then we put the link here. So let's grab the link. Actually, I have it here. So I'm just gonna grab it. All right. So in our get request, we're gonna put the link right here. So right there. So this is the cat API. So now it's gonna do the request for us. It's gonna say, okay, can you get the images for me? So now we have to handle it. We have to say, okay, so if it gets the images, now what are we gonna do? We have to say that then, right? That then is a function. It's a callback function for the promise. So remember we talked about promise and what it does. So it's asynchronous. Promise is asynchronous. So basically what we're doing right now is we're saying, okay, if you get the information, then what are we going to do is this. So usually you put the then in a new line like that. And then in here, you handle everything you get from here. So we could just say console log here for now. So to do that, you have to say first response. Okay. Imagine this is like, remember we used to say the callback functions, we used to say item or things like that. Here we're just going to say response or res. You could just say res. Okay. And this is another callback function. So inside this callback, inside this function, so in here we handle the response. So we're going to say console log. Okay. And we're just going to say res. Okay. That's all we're going to do. Now we're just getting it. So let's actually see what we actually get. Okay. So let's save it. Let's go to a full view so that you guys can see the actual data. It's coming from the cat API. We're going to say inspect. Sometimes you might get an error, so you have to go back to how you requested. So as you can see here, we actually get an object. Okay. So the object, there's something inside the object. So let's open it. Ooh, okay. There's data. Let's see. Okay. So a lot of times you see this. You see this gibberish. This is coming from their website. They have like a header, they have request, all that stuff. So all you're concerned about is the actual information you're looking for, which is the cats. As you can see here, there's a data. Let's open that data. Okay. Let's expand it. Okay. I see a bunch of stuff. I see about 67 or 66 stuff. It looks like this is the names of the cats. It looks like this could be the URL of the cat. So a lot of times this is what you have to do. You have to kind of like understand, okay, this could be the URL for the image, but actually it ends with .asp.aspx. So that's not an image. It's not a JPEG. It's not a PNG. So that cannot be the image. So what is the image? So you expand farther. So this is one cat right here. So expand it farther. Okay. So this is all the information about the cat. So you have adaptability, you have child friendly, whatever the number they gave. Description, they're saying this Abyssinian is easy to care for. and a joy to have your home. Okay, so that's the description. Nice. Dog friendly, blah blah blah. Hair. And okay, I see here image. Okay, I'm looking for image, so I saw image here. I'm just gonna expand that, and it seems like there is a JPEG here. So usually what I do is like if I'm looking for something, and I feel like this is like this looks like what I'm looking for, I just grab this URL and I just browse it. I just go to this URL. Oh, okay. So this is actual image of a cat. Okay, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this URL, and we're looking for the name of the cat. Okay, where's the name of the cat? It's right here. So that's all we're looking for right now. You could like grab all this information if you want. You could grab whatever information you're looking for, and then post it or show it. You could give it this link. I think this link is like the information about the cat, or maybe something else. We never know what it is. So as you can see, it doesn't. My computer froze. Oh yeah, it's information about the cat. So if you want people to click a link, and you want them to basically go to the cat website, that's how you could do. You could make this a URL. So there's so much things you could do with this. And every website you go to, every endpoint you go to, they give you a bunch of information. Sometimes they give you what you need right away. Sometimes they nest things like this inside something else. So you have to grab it somehow, some way. So let's go back to our code. Close this. Let's go to the editor. So now we did the request right here. So we say we send a request to this endpoint. We get information. So we said, okay, now let's handle that. We said console log it. But what if something happens? What if this happens? Okay, there's something wrong. I'm just messing up with the URL. So let's save that and let's go to full view. Let's go to full view. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we're gonna go to full view, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna inspect it. So let's inspect. So this means like the database didn't work. So there was an error in the database. Now it doesn't show anything here, right? It doesn't show anything. It doesn't show. It doesn't show anything. So it says network error here, basically. So you need to handle that. You need to say what is happening to the URL. So we're gonna handle that. So let's handle it and give it a message. So when something fails, we're gonna give a message. So to do that, we're gonna say dot then. So let me just let me write that. Not that then, I mean dot catch, sorry. So to do that, we're gonna say here, we're gonna create a new one, and we're gonna say, I think this is where you put it. Let me double check. So we're gonna do that. Okay, yeah. So right underneath this, we're gonna say dot catch, or right after it. So dot catch is another function. So and usually you put it the next line like that. So they kind of align. So dot catch is a how to handle the error. Let's say something didn't work out. How do you handle it? And here's another callback function. So we say error, and then give another function. Okay, and here we could just say console log. Console log. Something went wrong. Sorry. And then we can give the error here, what the error is. Okay. So now if we save that, still we have the URL wrong. So it's going to give us an error. But let's see what that error looks like right now. So let's open it, console log. Oh, it says here, oh, something went wrong. Sorry. Error, network error. So that's what it is, network error. So you could give a message here and say, sorry, something went wrong. And you could also display that message in a website and say, sorry, there's something wrong with the database. Something is wrong with the server. We cannot show you this information right now. Okay, so that catch is to catch the error. So now all we're going to focus is here. So how do we handle this? The next thing we're going to do is we could do that. Remember, the information of the cat was underneath the data, right? it was underneath the data. So now if we save it and go to full view, maybe we could open full view in a different tab. Let's close this so that we don't have to keep coming back. Go to here. We still have the error because we didn't correct the API here. Save it, run it again, and clear this, run. So this should show us all the cats that we need. It ran over there, but it didn't run here. So let's refresh. Okay, so it's kind of giving us some error here, but forget about those errors. I don't think those are related to what we're doing. So now, as you can see here, there's 67 things. We kind of made it so that we only target the data section. So now in the data section, we need to grab the name first. So to grab the name, we're just gonna say dot name here. But remember, there's a lot of names, so we have to loop over this. So if we just say that, then and save it, and go to here, clear this, refresh again, it's just gonna show all the names. Actually, it's not gonna show anything. Let's see, dot then dot name. Let's go back. So you could go back and see, okay, what went wrong. Save it. Clear, refresh. So if we want to select the name, we're just gonna go here and say name. So something went wrong. So we need to loop over all of them instead of just doing that. So let's actually create a let's create a for each. So for each, we're gonna say res dot data. So in this for each, we're gonna find the name and all that, and then we're gonna say for each. We're gonna do the usual stuff for each. We're just gonna say something like item, and then we're gonna create a callback function. In this callback function, let's grab a couple of things. Let's grab first the cat first, the name of the cat. So we're just gonna call it cat. Let's say the reason why we couldn't grab here, it was because it was a nested objects within nested objects. So we couldn't grab. So now we are in one object. So right here, the item. So if we actually console log the item, so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. So before we do all this, let's console log just the item. Item is each cat. So every cat is an item. Save this, clear this, and run again. So as you can see here, we got each cat by its own type. So now we could grab the name. So we could just say dot name here. Dot name, save it, and then go back here. It's frozen. Okay, now we can run to refresh, and it's gonna give us all the names of the cats, right? So that's basically what you need to do. You need to like dissect. You need to dissect the data that you're getting from the database. You need to know where something is, kind of like study it, basically understand what it is, understand what is returning. How do we grab something from it? If you cannot grab something from it, you have to do some looping, maybe use map or for each to loop through it, and then see if you could kind of like grab some. Sometimes you could just grab it by saying rest.data.name or something like that, but other times you have to do the looping. Okay, so now let's create the variable here. Let's say something like cat. Let's say item.name, and we're gonna create another one for the image URL. So we're gonna say image. Let's just say image equal to item dot. So the reason why we cannot just say item dot image is because first you have to learn where this image is. So let us again console log the item. Okay, console log item. So I want you guys to understand each step of what is happening here instead of me just typing it. So we have all the cats here. So if we want to grab one cat's image, we have to go inside the cat. We have to go inside the images, which is another, we have to go inside image, which is another object, and then grab URL. So you have to actually grab it like that. Otherwise, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get the image. It has to have that name. So for us to grab that, we're just gonna say, let's put it here. Let image equal to item dot image, which is this one, this image, and then we're gonna say URL. Okay. So sorry about that. URL here, dot URL. Okay. So now here's where we set to this. Okay. Here's where we do the appending to the main thing. So we're gonna say it's called the entry point. So entry point right here. Dot append child, and then we're gonna append the function to it. So the function, we called it cat card. The function is asking us two things. It's asking for the image and it's asking for the cat name. So we're gonna put here image, and we're gonna put here cat. So now we're gonna save, and that should show all the cats here. So save and run. Yep. So we have all the cats here, and we have the names of the cats too, as you can see. And this is coming from the cat API database. So if we refresh it, it should give us a new cats. Now, I think that's the random. So this one's going to give us the same thing. So there is also random endpoint where you could just say random, and it will give us a random cat each time. We could try that too. So you could go back here and go to the home here. Let's go to the first one, not the breed. Let's actually just say here documentation, and we're looking for random. Okay, where's the random? Let me zoom out. Okay, let's see. So this could be the random API. This could be the random. So search is probably the random. Okay, let's go back to our code and put that URL here. So let's see. Save, run. It's going to show one cat each time, probably. No, it's not showing anything. So a random is this one. It's the same thing though. Random images. Get random cat. It's URL. Load its URL. Okay, that's what we did. I don't know what's not showing. Did we run it? Okay, let's try again. I'm not sure what's not showing. We gave the URL. Let's see. Okay, let's go back here. So sometimes you just have to read a little bit more to understand. And let's put here. So we're gonna Google it.
Is in the console log for the data on the new URL is it still image.url, or did they change that array?
Which one? The one we were doing before?
No, the new link that you got. Did they change where you say let image equal to item.image.url? Do they have a new image, like the name image maybe?
That could be something. We could like explore that too. So we could say console log here. We could say res, save it, and then refresh here. Delete, refresh. So we'll get the data here, and we get this data, and also okay, yeah, I think you're right. So the data changed. So sometimes you have to look at that too. So the data changed. So instead of us doing all this, we don't even have to do the for each, I think. So let's go back to our code. Instead of doing all this, we could just grab this, put it right here, and kind of like comment out this. Well, we need these two. So let's do that. And let's set these two. So we just look at the data, how it looks like. So this is a data that breeds, not breeds, it's a data.url, right? I think. Data.url, yeah. Data.url. That's the image. So the image is data.url, and the name is what is the name? In the random, it doesn't show the name. I'm not sure. Header, it shows the breed. There's nothing in there. So I don't think it shows a name in the random. So we could just replace with some random name. It's fine. So in the name, let's just put like our cat, something like that, for the sake of now. So let's run that. It's not responding. Maybe I didn't do right. Oh, I didn't do here rest. Okay. Rest.data.url. Okay. Yep. It's not showing the image. Okay. It's showing our cat here. It's not showing the image. So let's just go back and see how it looks like. So data is actually an array. So it's not, we cannot get it as a object. So we have to say 0 and then .url. So instead of this, we have to say 0 here, which is the first array .url. No? Okay. 0.url, run.
Safe and run.
Yeah. So now each time we have to refresh it, probably should give us a new one. Yeah. So this is the random cat. So as you can see, sometimes you have to kind of go back to the data, inspect it again, see how things look like. It's gonna come back in an array or array of objects. Always. And objects, when I'm saying object, I'm just saying that, but it's actually a JSON data. So it looks like an object. So keep that in mind. Always, every database comes back as an array of objects or nested arrays and objects nested in different ways. So you have to actually study the data first, and then after that, inspect it. So if you actually want to just skip the before you study, if you want to just understand how it works, a lot of times they explain it in here in the documentation, exactly how the data is going to come back. They're actually going to show you exactly what you're going to get and what everything means. They're going to give you a breakdown of that. So let's see. Yeah, they will give you a breakdown sometimes. So keep that in mind too. If you are confused, usually a lot of times it's best to actually read the documentation. So that's pretty much it for this. Let's go back to the original one. And I'm just undoing what we did. Save, undo the URL, okay, and run. But yeah, any questions so far about how to do API call and get images or whatever, any information? Okay, so understand how Axios works. All you have to do is just it's already put in the header in your homework, but it will be in the header, and then you just say axios.get. There's also another one. If you have tried before another one, you could use that too. There's the fetch, so you understand. If you see it somewhere else, there's a fetch API.
I tried that one, but it didn't work.
So fetch API is the native one. It's the one for JavaScript that was built with JavaScript. So this one is already built in JavaScript, but it's not as elegant as Axios. Axios is pretty easy to learn. There's not much to it. All you have to do is just do axios.get, and then you do the whole thing, and then you say dot catch, and then you handle the error like that. And also in the future, when we're doing React and all that, you're gonna do post here. So you're just gonna do post, and then send data to this to URL, not this URL, but something that we created ourselves, and then verify it and all that stuff, and then send it. You also do like put, you also do delete here. Okay, So you have different those options. Another way to inspect the API is using a software called Postman. So if we look for Postman, there's also Postwoman, by the way, which is kind of interesting. There's Postwoman, which does the same thing. But yeah, Postman was the first one. It's kind of Postwoman is sort of like it's good, but it's not like this one has a lot of support. So Postman is a way to inspect our API. So if you want to understand what the API is returning, you use Postman. You could just go ahead and download it. It's pretty it's free. It's an open source. So you go here, download Postman. It's a software. It's already in my computer, so I can open it. Hopefully it opens. It takes a second for it to open. So as you guys can see, I already have my software set up for me. So I have Postman here and I have different things. So a lot of times when you're a developer, it's good to have like your software is kind of like already prepared for you and just you have it in one place. So Postman is a way to inspect your API instead of console logging it and going through that. You could just use Postman. And later on, if we're doing like if we're sending data, you cannot send it through the browser. So you cannot do a post request in a browser. It doesn't allow you. There's actually a security thing that every browser has that doesn't allow you to send a post request. So you have to use Postman. There's also another one called Insomnia, if you want to try that too. Some people like Insomnia, so they just do the same thing. Not the insomnia, the lack of sleep. Insomnia's software, Insomnia download. Yeah, so Insomnia is also same as Postman. I like Postman more. Is Ajax same as Fetch or Axios? Ajax is yeah, it's very similar to that. So Ajax is kind of like the old way of doing a HTTP request, but right now it's replaced by the Axios and the Fetch. And also Ajax is more like if you want to do vanilla JavaScript. So you could use Ajax to do HTTP requests. It's not only for API. So Ajax is mostly for like your own database. If you want to grab something from your own database, then you could use Ajax. But now it's replaced by React. So React is a different way of doing Ajax work. So, but you could, they're very similar. So now, I mean, there's a lot of things here. So all these things is something I tried. So I could just say clear history or something. Delete, what is it? Yeah, you could just say delete history or something like that. But the first thing we need to do is we need to make a new here. So just go here, you could say new, or if you have already something set up for you, you could say plus here, and it's going to give you a way to make a call. So as you can see here, let me zoom in if I can. As you can see here, they have like this place you could put the URL. So we're gonna put the API right here, and then you have get, post, put, delete, a bunch of things here. But we're just gonna learn get today. So and then you're gonna send the request. So now if we zoom out for a second, and you're expecting the data to come underneath here. And you're supposed to get like a JSON data. So Zakaria said React to use Fetch. So React we can use, you could use Fetch or you could use Axios. So those two things you could use in vanilla JavaScript. When I say vanilla JavaScript, I mean the JavaScript we're using right now with no framework or anything. Or you could use Axios. So mostly we will use Axios in React to make our life easier. So now we could just send the request, just like we were doing Axios right here, send, and it should give us a lot of data right here. So this is same data that we were doing console log. As you can see here, this is all the information it sends. So it expanded everything. You could view it in different ways. You could view it in like a raw way, preview, visualize. That does not work. So this is another way of sending a request. If you see this 200, like the status 200, so let's talk about a little bit about statuses. Status is a way of databases or servers to tell us, okay, the request was good. And that's something that you guys can set up later when we get to Node.js. You're going to create the statuses. So 200 usually means everything is good. So you get the request, everything's good. 404 means 400, 404. It means your the data is not there. So there's nothing to request. So if there's nothing in there, you just say, 404. If let's say something is wrong with the database, it's 500. Usually 500 is either for like if you're requesting something that you shouldn't be requesting in the browser, you usually say something like forbidden. So 500 usually is either browser the server is down or something is wrong. So 400, 404, 200, 500. And there's few other codes that you could use to make to show the people like what the status of what you're requesting basically. So 200, if you see 200, that means everything's good. Let's see. Any questions so far? Any questions? So let's look at the homework. If you guys don't have any question. Okay, so we learned all this. We learned how to do API call. You guys already knew how to build the components, so we will not focus on that. So this is basically what you're learning today is how to make API call. And you could do any API call by just replacing this. And then just if the data is already nested, you could do the for each. If it's not, you could just do the same, like call it. Like you have to look at what the data is giving you. So let's go to here and check out the assignment. In this assignment, you guys going to be building, if you already forked this assignment, to make sure to fork it now, because I actually changed it like 6 hours ago to make it easier for you and so you guys can understand what is happening. So in this one, you're going to create a user card from your GitHub. So you're going to use the GitHub API. So the GitHub API is open. So you can grab your profile and build a profile card for you and your friends or anyone you following or anyone you know in GitHub. So in this project, we're going to be accessing GitHub API and building a social card based on the data we get back. The goal is to create a component based on the data we get and we send GET request. So let me actually show you a quick one, how it's going to look like. So at the end of it, I'm not even sure if I can open it. So while that's opening, actually open it quickly. Let's go to section 1, full time. I just put in full time. And it's day 4. Okay, so we only need this one. So this is how it's supposed to look like by the time you're done. So this is not hard coded whatsoever. This is grabbing from right from GitHub, and it's showing my name from GitHub. It's showing my username from GitHub, my location from GitHub, URL, my friends, so people who are following me and people who I'm following, and my bio or description. And these are my friends. So Mohammed and Ibrahim, they're my friends. So I grabbed their URL. So all you need to grab is their URL, this one. Not the URL, I mean the name of the URL, the username. And it's showing the information. So this is what you could do in this assignment. That's what you're supposed to do. Let's go back here. Where is it? So it says these are things you need to know. How to create a DOM component. You guys learned that. Utilizing third-party libraries like Axios, which we explained. using the promises like that, then catch, which we just explained. HTTP requests, we talked about. Array methods, like for each, we use the for each, so you guys know all the array methods, not all of them, but you know the main ones. Also in the DOM, you need to know how DOM selection, you guys know that very well. Basic DOM manipulation, okay, and then event listener. And the event listener is not must, you could just add one if you want, but you don't have to. The setup, and then the MVP. So first step is requesting data from the GitHub API. So, and you have to follow the instructions in here. GitHub card, and then this index. So I'll put steps here, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Just follow these steps and you will be good. Make sure to read the README all the time. So part 2 is creating component, which you guys know very well. Part 3 is getting your friends GitHub handles and then putting that. Any questions so far? And in this assignment, you don't have to do any CSS or any HTML. Everything's done for you. All you have to do is just build the component and then call the API. Any questions so far?
How are you gonna choose your profile? You can get the main.
So I gave example here. So this is how you're gonna get that API. So using Axios, you use this link and then you replace your handle here. So mine would be Duran. So your handle, which is somewhere, so right here. This is my handle. So you replace with that. It's one word connected all to at the end, and that will be your API call. So you guys don't even have to go to the API for GitHub. It's already here. And your friends, you're just gonna replace the same thing. So you're gonna replace your friend with that right here. And then you follow these steps. Build this component, this card, and then after that you pass the data from the API, and then you do the appending, and then after that you create another call for your friends. You could also put your friends in an array and do that way if you want. At least 5 friends. So any questions?
Why are you gonna put your GitHub name as soon as you're gonna call your friends?
So your friends is gonna be another call, different call. Remember here, you could do right here within here. This is gonna be another API call. This is gonna be different. So it's gonna be another Axios. So you're gonna do 2 Axioses. One is for yours and the other one is for your friends. And your friends you can replace here by dynamically adding here template literal. You guys learned that. So the template literal, you're gonna add it there. You're gonna put all this in a template literal. Put something like followers array or something like that. And not followers array, because the array doesn't just automatically basically put each name here. You have to loop through the array and then put the name here for each one of them. Right? So that's one way to do it. There's different ways to do it. But first step is creating the component and also doing your API call for yours. So if you do these 2, then after that you go to the last step. Okay. Any questions? All right. We'll close this early, but let me mention a few things. Let me actually stop the recording before I mention that.